Hey everyone, welcome into Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and what a blessed Sunday it is. We are all blessed in various and different ways. I hope everything is going well with you, your family, your loved ones, there where you are. For the next X number of minutes, I don't know how long I'm going to be on. I will take your calls at 860-325-3687. I will post the number on the screen momentarily, and of course, I will dive into that live chat. Can't wait, because we've already got maybe 20 or 25 comments, something like that, in the live chat. So I will respond to those. I got to tell you, I don't have any particular topics picked out, but between the live chat, the calls, the comments that come in here every day as we near 20,000 subscribers right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, we will have plenty of football to talk about. My apologies here. Let's get us lined up. 61 days to week 0. Let's hold out hope. 61 days to week 0. That would mean 68 days to week 1 when most of your favorite teams start playing. I don't even know offhand who's playing week 0. We can look that up. Tons to talk about, of course, as we prepare you for the 2020 season. Released this morning was our Oregon defensive breakdown. Yesterday, LSU's recruiting efforts recently, their current targets, their recent commits, the transfer portal there. Oregon's offensive preview that we released over the weekend. We looked at Kentucky over the last few days on offense and defense, roster breakdown there. Notre Dame's offense. We've looked at the series that was signed between Ohio State and Alabama, of course. Ohio State offense and defense released last week, as well as Florida offense and defense. All sorts of good stuff. Arkansas and Nebraska and Syracuse and Oklahoma, as well as we get you set for 2020. Again, hope all of you are doing well out there. Give me a call. Let's talk some college football. Week 0. Let's look up week 0. And also, I'm going to jump into the comments first, the live ones, and then we'll go here to see who's been commenting over the past few days. Certainly some knuckleheads, but some great comments from most of you, some tremendous comments. And I don't need to be complimented in the comments. I'm not talking about that. Certainly debate me and bring up some challenging topics, and we will break down college football as we always do, but also some knuckleheads, as always, in the comments, and that's what's fun about YouTube and social media. That's what's fun about YouTube and social media, are the knuckleheads out there, and the many that think they have something to offer. Orange and green blood, good to see you. Luke Walker, can't wait to see North Carolina play. I know you can't wait. This could be your first relevant season, depending on your definition of relevance, since what, 2016 or 15, which was the year you played in the ACC championship game. I get them mixed up between the Virginia Tech loss to Clemson and the North Carolina loss to Clemson. I think it was 2016. 2016, with Marquise Williams at quarterback and tremendous wide receiver core led by, you had Ryan Switzer, of course. You had Mac, boy, I'm losing their names right now, but the 3 wide receivers that you had. And, of course, Hood at running back. Really good North Carolina football team. Absolutely. On offense, really good offensive football team. The defense, pretty awful. Defense pretty awful there at North Carolina. Oh, my goodness, my daughter's pulled up. We'll see how long we stay on here. Call in 860-325-3687. Much earlier than I anticipated. But what I am intrigued here with North Carolina, and they are one of a handful of teams that I am really interested to see play this season. North Carolina, Penn State for a different reason, to a different level, to a different degree. I'm intrigued with those two. I want to see what Texas has for us. Florida to make the jump. But North Carolina would have to be at the top of the list of teams that intrigue me. And I'm so glad and excited that they played two really meaningful non-conference games against UCF and against Auburn. Going to be tremendous there. Good to see you, Phil. Want to remind everyone as well, we're going to have another exclusive live stream coming up on Thursday night. Thursday night, another exclusive live stream. Got a call coming in. And so just let me know if you're interested in taking part, and I will explain that as I have about 15 times recently. But I will explain that more fully here in the next few days as we lead up to Thursday night. So Thursday night live stream, exclusive live stream with you talking to me right here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Okay, we'll try that again. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark, this is NT8.
There he is. Let me see if I can get you. Oh my goodness, what's going on with my phone?
I just wanted.
Yeah, nobody can hear you right now. Nobody can hear you until I get this speaker on, which I can't get to. I can hear you, but nobody else is going to be able to hear you. What you got for us?
Okay, anyway, I sent you this morning
There we go.
that I recovered the LA Times talking about the conferences starting the beginning back in 1990 of the conferences beginning to collapse. So I sent you the article from 1990, and then I put it in the top chat for everybody to go back and read it, because I didn't know if you'd have time to get into it. But it went all the way back to saying 1990, Arkansas was the first team to leave the Southwest Conference to go to the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, what year was it when Missouri went to SEC, Colorado went to the Pac-12, Nebraska went to the Big Ten. I can't remember what the years are.
Okay, Arkansas and South Carolina left for the SEC at the same time. Arkansas and South Carolina joined the SEC in 1992 was the first year that they were in. They signed the contract in 1990. Penn State joined the Big Ten in 1993.
It's not a big deal. It's just the startup, because I kept bringing this up to you, but I didn't have the backup information until I found it today from 1990 is when Arkansas was the first team to leave the Southwest Conference. So I just wanted to bring that up. I wanted to tell everybody that's in the chat room that I put the article link in the chat room for everybody to read it whenever they get around to it. Not saying go to it now, but I just thought it would be interesting that I actually found something really that good to go back and read the entire thing, and you'll just go, man, here we are 2020 and it's still exploding. So anyway, I'm off. I'll let you go with it, and nice talking to you, my friend.
I only have one question for you, Tom. So you're telling me this article was written now, or was written back in 1990?
It was written, if you read the entire thing, I think it goes further into some of the years, but it started off was the 1990 Arkansas going to the SEC from the Southwest Conference.
Okay.
So,
all right. It's a good topic, always.
You have to read it. You have to read it and toss around in your head, just like I did. I was like, man, next chance I get a chance. Well, I sent it to Mark, and I sent it to NCIS.
It's on my list.
And
Navy Times.
NCIS was like loving it. So just wanted to go with that and let you go with it, buddy.
I will give it a read, and we'll see if we've got anything there to go on.
All right, my friend. Talk to you later.
Tom, I appreciate it. Have a good one. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking it down, and we will take your calls for the next few minutes here. We got Nate on the line. Nate the Great, don't be late. Could be the longest handle on YouTube, possibly. Good to see you, the Rod Farba, looking to decide Michigan's quarterback decision with Mr. Milton. Back in my studio, Nick D Sports 4 joined us last weekend, but apparently not since then because I've been here since Tuesday, at least since Tuesday. So Nick D Sports, you can catch up with the rest of us here. We got Gators Nation on the line as well. Cheryl, always good to see you. And we were going to dive into a number of things, but we will take your phone calls. So pack in the phone calls. We'll take a few phone calls, and I will not necessarily have time to dive into all this other stuff that I had prepared or at least wanted to go into. But we do need to look at week 0 because, again, there's the countdown clock right there, 61 days to week 0. Check out those games. And then, of course, week 1. And I am going to be dissecting some national championship races from the past. That's certainly on the agenda as well. And we've got a lot of fun comments that have come in over the last week or so that definitely need my response. Definitely. I don't do that enough to take your comments and respond to them on the air. But some interesting criticisms in the last week that need a response. So we'll get to that. And also keep in mind that we talk Florida State every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And then the Ohio State and the Miami live streams, those float. So that's why you need to subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, and you're all set. And if you're checking out our subscriber count in the next day, I will predict we should hit the magic 20,000 subscriber limit. Total right there. Also was on the phone this afternoon with somebody that most of you would recognize. I'm not going to divulge the name right now, but somebody that gave me a phone call this afternoon about a possible exciting project. So that could be in the works over the next several weeks. Eight 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. Florida Gators Nation joins us. Kevin, Miami's success will hinge on quarterback play and offensive line play. Well, that's a split decision right there. The offensive line is fully back except for Navon Donaldson, who we talked about with the Wholesome One just the other day. Miami's most likely best offensive lineman, unfortunately needs to take a red shirt because of injuries this year. But, of course, De'Ara King is most likely what I would consider to be, I don't know, the third best quarterback in the ACC playing for Miami. Oh, we had a call coming in and they're gone. Don't know what happened there. Let's give this baby another shot.
Press 1 to start the call or 2.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's McD Sports Store. How are you doing?
Hey, McD. What's going on, man?
Hey, sorry I didn't catch a show on Tuesday. I think I was
That's
busy
quite
with
all right.
something.
I think we were live. We were live on Tuesday. We were live on Tuesday night. We were live on Thursday night. We were live on Friday.
Thursday? I didn't see that.
3 live streams. Yes.
Damn.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't see
We missed you.
Thursdays, but
We definitely missed you.
Yeah.
I gotta say that I heard you featured as you call Pigskin Pete on a regular basis. I believe you do. I don't get a chance to see him too much, but I think you call him on a regular basis. But you guys were having fun with the I just caught it. See, somebody tipped me off to what he was doing with the YouTubers if they were females. You know what I'm talking about? And so then I had to check that out because a couple of people tipped me off and I had no idea what they were talking about. So I went back, I looked at the video, I kind of skimmed through it, and he eventually got to me too.
Yeah. He got to around to everybody.
That was good stuff. It was fun.
Yeah.
All
But,
right, man.
I have a question, and then I want to debate you on something.
Okay.
What is the hype around Texas Tech? I've been noticing a lot lately that trending upset pick is Texas Tech to go ahead and beat Texas.
So when you say Texas Tech is going to be Texas, is that all we're seeing is a 1-game prediction that Texas Tech's going to be Texas?
Well, I'm seeing some. I see some 6-6, 7-5.
No.
I personally don't think they're very much of a bowl team. I mean, they might back themselves into it, but I just don't think they're very that good. It's the offense they're pretty good this year because we all know what the defense is.
Well, certainly. So Matt Wells is a defensive-minded coach, and I trust him to build a pretty good program because that's what he did at Utah State. And going 6-6 or 7-5 isn't that much of a stretch after they went 5-7 last year. And as always, their non-conference schedule is garbage. UTEP, Alabama State, Arizona. Arizona at home. So there's probably 3-0 right there. All they have to go is 3-6 in the Big 12 to get to a bowl game.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, can they go 3-6 in the Big 12? I mean, at least they play a Power 5 in the non-conference. I'll give them that. But
yeah, that's better than Baylor.
Correct.
What they typically
I don't know. Well,
Baylor's got Ole Miss. I'm not talking about this specific year. Yes, Baylor's taking on Ole Miss, but Baylor typically plays no one.
I would probably tend to agree with that, but I mean, can they go 3-6? I mean, they'll probably beat Kansas. You know, I think they lost to Kansas last year, if I'm not mistaken. Or was that TCU who lost to them? Someone lost to them last year. But can they beat? I mean, I think they're only better than Kansas and West Virginia in the Big 12.
And that's a maybe.
I'll give Texas Tech over West Virginia because I think West Virginia is going to take a big step back this year.
Well, they already did last year.
Well, they went 5-7 last year. I think they'll lose one more game and go 4-8.
So I'm looking at an article right now, so I certainly can't take credit for this because other than going through some of their skill position players and their quarterback, I haven't looked at anything on Texas Tech the offseason, and I doubt that I saw them much more than a couple quarters of play last year. But the reasons for optimism apparently here, according to them, they had 4 one-score losses last year. It doesn't say to whom. As you mentioned, they did lose to Kansas. Last second field goal, 37-34. Alan Bowman back at quarterback. So they had an injured quarterback. Alan Bowman's a pretty talented player. So if they get him back for a full season. So he was knocked out in week 3 last year. Receivers coming back. And of course they play everybody non-conference at home. and then they've got 5 of their 9 conference games at home.
I mean, I know Lubbock is a tough place to play, personally. I know, I think I remember, was it 2 years ago, Oklahoma they gave Oklahoma everything they could handle and everything. But, I mean, I just don't see it because, yes, I know they get the starting quarterback back, but, I mean, who are they better than in the Big 12 besides Kansas and West Virginia? They're not better than TCU. They're the worst team in the Big 12 in the state of Texas. I would say Kansas State's better than them. I would say Iowa State's better than them. The Oklahoma teams are better than them. So I just don't know where they're going to get probably more than 2 wins. And if they have to go on the road and play West Virginia, that's probably going to be a loss. So I don't know where they're going to get 3 conference wins.
So McD,
so that could
step outside the box with me just for a second. Let me run something by you that I've outlined a few times the last couple off seasons. So, for example, I went through an article yesterday. I really wanted to go through the personnel. It was a nice personnel breakdown of every team in the ACC, but I didn't have a chance to go through that. I was going through the record predictions. For this particular site, I'm not going to name the site. For that particular site, everybody in the ACC, they predicted to go within a game, to finish this season within a game of last year's win-loss total. Okay? Now, that's conventional thinking to think, okay, Texas Tech went 5-7 last year. Maybe they go 6-6. Maybe they go 5-7. Oh, West Virginia went 5-7 last year. Maybe they go 4-8 after you look at this. And on down the line, what I'm saying is we generally think conservatively that teams don't change. They stay the same. Therefore, they're only going to go up maybe a win or down a win. But in fact, over 30% of the country over the last 2 seasons, their win totals either increased by at least 3 games or decreased by at least 3 games. 5 teams in the Big Ten last year won or lost at least 3 games. At least 5 teams in the ACC had at least a 3-win drop or increase from the previous season. So we got to find those teams that are either going to improve drastically or decline drastically, because they're going to be out there. They're tough to find. I'm right in line with you, Big D, because I tend to say, oh, Florida State went. Well, Florida State's not a good example. Let's run down, the Big 12. Iowa State went 7-5 last year. Run through the schedule. They should go about 7-5 this year. Oklahoma always goes 11-1. They'll probably go 11-1 again, on down the line. But those teams are out there, and there's going to be a lot of them, especially in this situation this year with all the craziness going on, where teams, some will be galvanized by this situation, and their coaching staffs will do an awesome job of taking advantage of a difficult situation, and others will have a lot of adversity. So we may have an unpredictable season.
I mean, and that's a good point. And I know last year in Big 12, Kansas State was a surprise team last year. I didn't expect them to really do much, but they turned around and actually had a decent season. But I'm not saying Texas Tech isn't going to make a bowl game. They might back themselves into 6-6, but I think people are just really hyping them up. I don't think they're beating Texas at home. I just don't. I think Texas, even though Texas is not back, and he never will be. Texas is just too good of a team, in my opinion, to lose to Texas Tech. But the other point I want to get into, Mark, is Dan Mullen over Kirby Smart. I do not know what is the basis of that argument. Like, why do you think that?
Okay. You understand, McD, that it's easy. Anytime you're ranking coaches, just to take the guys with the best records and rank them 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th on down the line, and then try to defend that. It's the easiest stance to take. I can give you if we would go, especially to the NFL ranks, I could give you all sorts of great arguments for guys being better coaches who achieved less than other coaches because of circumstances. Now, take that to the collegiate level, and it's even more pronounced. We have a huge gap between teams and programs that have huge advantages in recruiting bases and in resources and money and history and tradition and all those things than others. So I'm just making a point to start us out that you would not rate a coach at Ohio State and Northwestern to have the same advantages and disadvantages, correct? You would expect Pat Fitzgerald, if he went to Ohio State, he's going to win more.
Northwestern.
What's that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, see, that doesn't currently exist with Dan Mullen and Kirby Smart. I will, from here on out, rank them and rate them against each other on an even playing field. It's not like Dan Mullen's at Vanderbilt and Kirby Smart's at Georgia. It's Georgia, Florida. If you don't recruit as well at Florida than Georgia, you've got no excuse. You've got just as much talent there, resources, et cetera, et cetera. But if we're looking at what Dan Mullen accomplished at Mississippi State, you would have to go back to Jackie Sherrill in the early to mid 90s to find anything close to what Dan Mullen was able to do at Mississippi State. And Jackie Sherrill accomplished that in a much easier SEC Western Division. When people bring up this whole Kirby Smart, Dan Mullen and their 3 games against each other, well, Dan Mullen just came to Florida and took over a team that won 4 games, and he's taken them to 2 top 10 finishes, and they're getting better by the year. Now, if we're sitting here in 3 to 4 years and Dan Mullen has not been able to push past Georgia, then with more information, rankings can change, of course. Kirby Smart's done an excellent job. I don't want people to misconstrue that I'm ranking Dan Mullen as the best coach in the country and Kirby Smart as the 25th best coach in the country. I simply stated that, in my opinion, Dan Mullen is a better coach based on the information I have right now. And let's not bring up Mississippi State, because for as much as anyone wants to bring up his lack of success at Mississippi State, I will let you know, okay, who's won anything at Mississippi State ever? My answer is no one, because even the year that Mississippi State won the SEC Western Division, I actually at work watched the SEC championship game from that year just last night was on. And I was there. So I saw that team play every game. That team lost 5 games. The team was not a good football team overall, as a championship team. The likes of LSU, there was no Texas A&M. Alabama and LSU were losing 5 and 6 games a year at that point. It was just basically Auburn was the only good team in the division, and Arkansas occasionally. So you can't rate and compare what Jackie Sherrill faced in doing a decent job at Mississippi State in going, 7-5, 8-4 most seasons, versus what Dan Mullen had to do when he was facing maybe the greatest superpower in the history of college football, Alabama, and pretty much took the job at the same time Nick Saban did. So he's had to deal with Alabama, LSU, Auburn, and now Texas A&M in that same division. So what he did at Mississippi State was pretty strong. Nobody else is doing it.
Continue.
I'm just stating that Dan Mullen's done a better job at Mississippi State than anybody.
And I would tend to agree with that, actually. But what's the coach in the mid to late 90s that you mentioned that had some success there? I forget his name.
Jackie Sherrill.
Yeah, Jackie Sherrill went 10-2 at Mississippi State in 1999.
Yeah.
And then win the SEC West.
Yes, but believe me, I know all the records. I was there for every game. I was at their Peach Bowl game. Believe me. Again, you're talking about a completely different landscape of college football. You're talking about go back and look and see how good or not good Alabama and LSU were during the 1990s. For Alabama, after about 1995, they were in the first 5 years of the 90s. You're just not even. It's not even. It would be like Mississippi State joining the. It wasn't a horrible division by any stretch, but it just wasn't anything close to what it's been since Nick Saban jumped on board.
And I will also make the argument that you said LSU and Auburn are better than Mississippi State throughout the years, which that Dan Mullen was there, which I agree with. But LSU and Auburn had coaching changes because they fired their head coaches while Mullen was there.
Okay, so what's your point there?
My point is, I wouldn't say LSU and Auburn were completely, and I know Auburn won a national championship while Mullen was there, but I wouldn't say those two teams were completely like the gold standard.
Okay, so Dan Mullen was at Mississippi State from what? 2006 was his first year?
2009.
Oh, he didn't get there till 2009.
Yeah.
Okay. So LSU went to a national championship game 2 years later. Auburn won the national championship the next year. We can all agree that that's been the best division in college football for the entire time that Dan Mullen was at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Even Ole Miss was really good. Even Ole Miss was really good for 3 years.
Yeah. Well, they were cheating.
Well, they were cheating,
which
but
I actually think makes Dan Mullen a lot better than he was able to win with this other school.
There you go.
Cheating.
There you go. Bobby Petrino finished in the top 10 twice while Dan Mullen was there. That's how good Arkansas
here's my last
was.
argument about it. Dan Mullen's never beaten Kirby Smart at both Mississippi State and Florida.
Yeah. So let's understand that the year before Dan Mullen arrived at Florida, Florida won 4 games and they lost to Georgia by 5 touchdowns. The next year, Florida was competitive with Georgia. It was a 1-score game with about 8 minutes left. Last year, they lost by a touchdown. And they finished in the top 10 the last 2 years after not being able to do that. Aside from 1 year under Will Muschamp in 2012, Florida hasn't sniffed the top 10 since Urban Meyer left. So they haven't sniffed the top 10 since 2009. That was 11 years ago, and Dan Mullen has placed them in the top 10 the last 2 years.
And listen, that's pretty good, but Dan Mullen isn't recruiting at Georgia's level. He's actually really recruiting at Tennessee's level, if you want me to be pretty honest. And he needs to be Kirby Smart. He really does. I don't think he's going to do it this year because I actually think Georgia's just miles ahead of them. I think this whole thing about Florida winning the East is a joke, and we'll wait and see who does. But I know it's going to be a weird year, but my money would be on Georgia to win the East over Florida right now.
Well, we can cite examples of teams out-recruiting other teams all over the place. Nebraska's out-recruited Wisconsin since they joined the Big Ten. They've had much better recruiting class. They've had recruiting classes in the 15 to 25 range, and Wisconsin's been in the 40s. So, of course, you have to recruit to win. But it's possible that Dan Mullen could recruit classes in the top 8 to 10 in the country and beat a roster that's in the top 3 to 4 in the country. That can happen. I guarantee you that Dan Mullen would have done a better job of handling the quarterback situation at Georgia than Kirby Smart has.
Yeah, he would have won Justin Fields game 1. I mean, everybody knows that. That's the one that doesn't have Kirby Smart.
That's part of coaching right there. Select the right guy and then develop it. And what Dan Mullen got out of Felipe Franks was he took a quarterback who threw 9 touchdowns and 8 interceptions 1 year, and he took it to 24 touchdowns and 6 interceptions under Dan Mullen.
That's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty good. But overall, Dan Mullen's just gonna have to beat Kirby Smart for me too.
Sure he is. Of course he is. Of course he's going to have to beat him. But they've played 2 games, and Kirby Smart took over a better program. And Kirby Smart's done an excellent job. Mark Richt left a top 10 to 15 program, and Kirby Smart has made it a top 5 program. He's done a great job. He's not the best in-game coach. He's had a number of gaps in-game. But yes, he's built a tremendous program. If anything, up until this statement that I made about believing at this point that Dan Mullen's a little bit better coach than Kirby Smart, I had generally people calling me and commenting all the time that I defended Kirby Smart too much. And what has Georgia accomplished is what I hear most of the time. And then I have to defend Georgia and that they have won significant games. They have been to the conference championship game 3 years in a row, been to a national championship game, came within a whisper of winning the national championship. So he's done a tremendous job there. I'm not talking about Kirby Smart like he's some knucklehead.
Hey, Mark.
Yep.
I have 2 other really quick questions that I just want yeses and nos on.
Sure.
Should Georgia have fired Mark Richt, in your opinion?
Okay. This is a great topic, McD, and this is why. I will put Mark Richt and Les Miles in the same category. Were they doing a good job at their respective schools? Well, if you're going to base it on, okay, are those teams competitive? Are they good? Mark Richt finished in the top 10, 8 of 15 years at Georgia. So the answer on one level is yes. How can you possibly, some people would say, and did at the time with both coaches, how can you fire coaches for going 9-3 and 10-2? Okay, well, let's also adjust our evaluation to how much money they're being paid. Both of those guys, like Jim Harbaugh right now, so I make the same argument when I talk about Jim Harbaugh with people. Once you elevate it to what type of money is being paid, the type of money that Richt and Les Miles were being paid, and that Harbaugh is currently being paid, is to win championships, compete for championships on a regular basis and win some. And they weren't getting it done. Mark Richt, that would have been an unjust decision to make if it would have been 2012, 13, 14, because they were really good and they had just come off that tremendous 2012 season. And he was just unlucky to a certain extent in not getting to a national championship game, but they had kind of tailed off a little bit. And their 2014-15 seasons, let's see, Smart's first year was 16. Yeah, their 2014 and 15 years, you saw a drop off to like a 9-3. I think they went 9-3 both of those years. So I think both firings were justified. LSU had gone from losing a national championship game in 2011. Miles got fired in 16. So for 12, 13, 14, and 15, you're talking 4 consecutive years. He lost at least 3 games. And then that loss that fired him in 2016 was to Auburn on the road that dropped them to 3-2. So they were headed down the same path with way too much talent to be losing 3 and 4 games a year. So I don't know if that answers your question, but they're both capable football coaches, really good at what they do, but they just weren't living. They weren't winning at the level that they were being compensated for. Much, again, like Jim Harbaugh right now.
Okay.
Jim Harbaugh is a good football coach, and people may laugh at me when I say Jim Harbaugh is a really good football coach, but he's not getting it done to the level he's being paid, so he needs to get fired pretty soon if he doesn't come through.
Yeah, and I'll make one comment about Jim Harbaugh, and then I'll ask my last question. His contract is up in 2021, so I think he's just going to get lame duck, honestly, at this point. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, but my next question, and this is an interesting question, but I just thought of it. Do you think that Florida let go Will Muschamp too early? because after Muschamp left, McElwain came in, and yes, he took them to back-to-back SEC championship games, but we all know why he got there. It's because Muschamp recruited a defense, and McElwain basically rode the defense, because no one knows. Everybody knows McElwain didn't know what he was doing.
Yes, agreed. So Muschamp, let me get my years straight. So Mullen there in 18 and 19. So McElwain's last year was 2017. So he must have been there, what, 2015, 16, 17?
McElwain was there 15, 16, 17. Muschamp was there from 2011 to 2014.
So Muschamp's really good team was in 2012. I think people forget how good that team was, and they came within a whisper of playing in the SEC championship game. They only lost one game in the regular season, and that was a game that they actually dominated defensively against Georgia, but they turned it over like 85 times and lost the game. They played a very difficult non-conference schedule, including a really good Florida State team, and then they laid an egg in the Sugar Bowl, which kind of tarnished the season. So then let's see, 2013 and 14, I'm trying to come up with what Florida did those seasons.
They went 4-8.
Oh yeah.
13.
Yes,
and then they turned around with 7-5.
Okay.
And 14,
Okay.
and Muschamp went back to 14.
Okay. Yeah, I think the firing's justified at a place like Florida. You know, what in the world, coming off 11-1 and going to the Sugar Bowl, going 4-8, and then you didn't recover from that 7-5. You should almost never go 4-8 at Florida.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
I agree.
You know, like if he goes 4-8 and then he bounces back to 9-3 or 10-2, but he only bounced back to 7-5. Yeah, I thought his firing was justified, and he's in a very unusual situation in South Carolina. I don't know what to think of that job because they pack out the stadium. They love their team just as much as anybody else in the SEC, but nobody's been able to sustain winning there. And he's certainly not.
Spurrier.
Well, Spurrier. Yeah, well, Spurrier, if you look at Spurrier's career, he had a ton of 7-5 seasons for most of the time he was there. And then he went on a run. He went on a run near his last 3 years. I think it was up until his second to last season, where he won 11 games 3 consecutive years. But before that, it took him a long time to get to that point. He was there since what, 03?
05, I would say.
Let's see.
Yeah, 05.
So Spurrier, yeah, you're on it. 05. So listen to this. This is what I'm talking about. 7-5, 8-5, 5-6. I'm sorry. Let me back up. 7-5, 8-5, 6-6, 7-6, 7-6, 9-5. So he's losing 5 or 6 games for 6 consecutive years. Then he kicked it in 11-2, 11-2, 11-2.
He should have left after that third 11-2. He stayed there 2 years too long.
Yeah, it went 7-6, and then he gave up 6 games into the next season.
That was one of the worst things I've ever seen. Just him quitting after that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty lame.
I thought that was weak, and I personally feel like I can't blame South Carolina for not forcing him out the door because of Steve Spurrier, obviously. But they should have. They really should have. Probably after that 7-6, they probably should have forced him out the door. But you can't blame South Carolina. They're a middle-of-the-road team. I actually think they're going to make a bowl game this year, believe it or not. I think I would lean towards them making a bowl game, but overall, I mean, I think Muschamp is an okay fit there, but he's never going to compete in the SEC East. He's just not.
No.
South Carolina will never compete in the SEC East with Muschamp. So,
do you know
he'll get left there eventually.
Do you know offhand, other than Clemson, who they play out of conference?
He played I think he plays East Carolina at one of his games.
Oh, so they don't have
I want
another
to-
big game?
They don't have a big game. I think East Carolina could be a surprise team in the American personally, but I don't think they really have like that big of a game outside of Clemson.
Okay, well, so he goes 3-1 out of conference, and he's got to go 3-5 in the SEC to make a bowl game, and then they got an interesting decision to make.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely say that they're better than Vandy and Missouri. I think in 2020.
Oh, I think so too.
But anybody else? I mean, I think Kentucky is a flip of the coin. Tennessee, I think, is a tick better than them, even though I'll come out there right now. I think they beat Tennessee at home this year. So let's see what happens there. But Mark, I just realized I had you on for 31 minutes, and I want to give someone else a shot to call in, obviously.
Thanks,
So
McD.
thanks for taking my call, and go Terps.
You have a great night. We'll see you. Our man McD, always with some very thoughtful topics for us. I always appreciate McD gets us jump started. You got to understand, many times I'm like flying in the door and I'm sitting down and I'm firing up the live stream and taking your calls, and I've prepared nothing. We just talk. I'm trying to understand the comment that's coming in right now concerning my thoughts on
The call will
LSU.
start at the beep.
So Louisville is saying, Mark, have you put LSU in your top 3 yet? If not, explain. I don't have a top 25 yet. I will release a top 25. Louisville, you should know that last year, when everybody else wasn't quite believing in LSU yet, I had LSU ranked number 1 way in September. I started ranking LSU when they were still 7th, 8th. All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
MSU #1 fan.
Hey, how's it going tonight?
Good. I think what Mr. Pat with Jim Harbaugh is, if he can go 11-1 in the 11-1 in the regular season,
Mm-hmm.
he loses to Michigan State, which would be a bad loss and state rivals. We have to think though, if you don't go to the Big Ten championship, are they going to fire him? Not doing winning championships. So that
Okay, so you're telling me if Jim Harbaugh goes 11-1, of course that loss is going to be to Michigan State,
yeah,
and then what?
I respect. Huh?
Is this what you're predicting to happen?
Yeah.
Michigan's going to go 11-1. They're going to beat
Yep.
Minnesota. They've got Wisconsin, I believe.
Yep.
Need to look at that. They got a tough schedule.
Yeah. Instead of Michigan State, I'm gonna try to do my schedule previews.
Oh, you got your schedule previews coming up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to figure out how to write down all the schedules and all that.
You know, there's one other game that Michigan plays, and call me crazy, but they might lose to
Rutgers.
who was I thinking of the other day that I know is a crazy thought, but I thought there's a possibility I could see them losing. I know it's a road game that they go to Ohio State, and I know it sounds crazy that they could possibly lose to Ohio State, but I don't know. I've got a hunch. I've got a hunch about the Ohio State game. I think Michigan could drop that one. I know it's going to shock the world.
Yeah. Can they lose to maybe Maryland?
Sure,
No.
they could lose to Maryland. Just ask McD Sports.
I'll have to look at the schedule and see.
What are you predicting for Michigan State?
Right now, I have 6-6 to 8-4.
Okay.
Is that too much for a new head coach?
Well, I think it's probably a little heavy on the wins, but I certainly understand. You're a Michigan State fan, and
Yeah. The head coach, who obviously has been there.
But
if Mel Tucker can pull us out of the dumps that we've been in, who knows? He might be back in the college football playoff a couple of years down the road, but who knows?
sure, could be.
Maybe Rutgers, maybe. Not in a couple of years, but maybe a few seasons down the road. I think Rutgers is coming in okay. Not going to be the greatest head coach, but not going to be the worst.
Well, they've got a decent coach back.
Yes. I think Coach D'Antonio set the bar for him to say, I did so well up until, 2016? I'd say.
Sure, 17 was a good year, 10-3.
Yep. He can do better than that. Mel Tucker might do a bit better.
I am telling you this right now, MSU #1 fan. If Mel Tucker duplicates what Mark D'Antonio did at Michigan State, be grateful. Be ecstatic.
It would be great. A lot of people are saying that I've seen on YouTube a lot are saying, Ohio State might go to Michigan State and lose the trap game. We've seen that happen a couple of seasons. And you can't take Rutgers lately anymore, too, because they got Greg Schiano back. So they're going to do decent.
Okay, what's decent?
Maybe 4-8, 3-9.
Okay,
maybe 5-7.
All right, that would be an improvement, sure.
Sure. And Purdue, they have a lot of. If Purdue and that can stay healthy, they might be Big Ten West contenders. Not saying they will.
Okay, if they stay healthy, they could contend.
I was watching a Good Iron expert. He said Iowa will lose to Purdue.
Okay. It's possible.
Which
sure.
We all know what happened in 2017 when Ohio State went there.
Mm-hmm.
The Kinnick Stadium.
Yep.
And
they got
Ohio
blasted.
State went to Purdue and got blasted.
Yep.
But I'm just waiting to hear from the Michigan fans that from the live chat, if they had a coffee bowl, Ohio State be playing in there, dipping their donuts in there, having a 2-10 season every year. Sometimes you gotta take on your little brother. Sometimes.
All right, MSU #1 fan, got another call coming in here. I appreciate it.
All right, start me on. Beat the Buckeyes.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline. The call will start at the beep.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Rod Farber. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good. What's going on?
Good. Hey, there's not a whole lot. Just taking a look, good to have you on. Just wanted to get your thoughts on something that happened recently. I kind of wanted to segue into another topic with this. Just wanted to get your thoughts on Under Armour firing UCLA. We have seen schools leave brands like that, but not usually. I've never seen a brand leave them, like leave the school. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I read the statement from Under Armour saying how UCLA is just not living up to their end. So I was just kind of curious on what your thoughts on that was, seeing how much Chip Kelly has to do with that, because that guy has just fallen from grace since his time at Oregon. And also, I kind of wanted to get into another topic about how overall branding, how you think overall branding like kind of impacts college football today. Because I don't know if you remember me and that writer from Miami that you have on had that debate about Adidas and how it kind of has a lot to do with the marketing of a program. So just kind of curious on what your thoughts were on all that whole thing
I will tell you out of the gate that it is very important in life to know your weaknesses. And so you've certainly hit one of mine. I could care less about apparel. I don't really pay much attention to it. I couldn't tell you who signed with who. I would assume that 3/4 of them are signed with Nike, but I don't, I sit here blurry-eyed watching 14 hours of football on a Saturday, and I couldn't tell you who's got what emblem on their or logo on their uniforms. I have no idea. Don't really pay attention to it. So when I saw this Under Armour decision to ditch UCLA, I assumed that it was some of the current social environment, race-related type of connotation. That's what I took, because I had seen some things out of UCLA that, I just thought that it had that slant to it. I have looked at nothing concerning that situation. So you're telling me that Under Armour had made that decision based on UCLA's inadequacy on the playing field?
Not just football.
Sure.
At least that's just kind of what the impression I got from their statement. I mean, obviously, Under Armour isn't going to flat out come out and say, they've underperformed to our standards, so we decided to leave. They kept it very PC, just saying how they just kind of like they just wanted to move on. That's just kind of I'll try to send that to you. I'll try to find that quote, send it to you on Twitter. Yeah, I just found that real interesting. So I'm like you as well. No, I don't think it should matter. I don't think a player or an athlete should choose a school based on who sponsors them. However, I think today's young athlete, I think that does play a role, because I coach baseball, and I've asked players of mine, does that factor in? It's not a major factor, but it does kind of help. Like, for instance, when Michigan switched over to Jordan Brand, and you see, because the players like to have those edits on Twitter of them decked out in the uniforms, wearing the Jordan cleats and things like that. So I actually do think it matters a little bit. I don't think it's a deal breaker, but I don't think it's a deal breaker by any means. I'm like you. I don't think it should matter at all.
Oh, well, wait a minute.
Generation of kids.
Don't misinterpret what I
matter to a degree.
No, don't misinterpret what I said. I didn't say that it shouldn't matter. A kid should be able to decide and make a college decision based on whatever he wants. That makes no difference to me. I would hope that my child wasn't making a decision on where to go to school based on what the apparel is, but they have every right to do so. I'm just telling you that I don't keep track of that. I don't pay any attention to it, and I have no idea who is signed with anyone. You could name me every school in the country, and I would be guessing who they're with.
See, I can just because I'm kind of on your level of this freaky college football knowledge. And I've actually had this discussion with other friends, to try to make a point. And if you look back at I think it was the last 2 or 3 final top 25 polls in college football, no Adidas team finished ranked. And so you're seeing more Adidas schools leaving Adidas, how Notre Dame left Adidas. Tennessee was with Adidas for a long time, and they left. Michigan, they did that experiment, and then they got the hell out. Even though they had a record deal, they still got the hell away because, I don't know if you ever saw this, but they actually surveyed all the student athletes in Ann Arbor, from football players to cross-country athletes. And an overwhelming amount of student athletes voted for Nike. I think it was like over 80% chose Nike. So, and again, like you and I, it shouldn't be the deciding factor, but I kind of think it does matter in terms of, marketing and revenue and things like that. But, so what do you think, back to the UCLA thing, so what do you think that kind of means for Chip Kelly going forward? Well, it's just more bad PR for UCLA.
Absolutely. It's awful PR, even though somebody like me, and I'm an old, outdated dinosaur of a college football person, it doesn't mean anything to me, but that speaks volumes to the people that you're talking about, and generally all of college football nation, that if a brand and apparel is bailing on you, so UCLA is obviously a basketball school traditionally, but and I don't follow college basketball anymore. I did for a long time and knew quite a bit, but I don't follow it now. but I know that they went to back-to-back Final Fours in, 06 and 07? And since then, they really haven't been a factor at all. And so even though it's a basketball school, I would be pretty safe in saying their football program generates more income than the basketball program. And the football program's a disaster right now. It's awful. Yeah, that's a horrible look when your two major programs are not even competitive. And so then your most popular, most well-known, I shouldn't say popular, your most well-known employee at the university is your head football coach. And he's come in with a lot of fanfare and taken over a pretty good roster. And he's been awful. He's been 7-17.
Yeah.
And now there's a brand name that's made a decision that we want to cut ties and don't want to be associated with you. Yeah, I would think that that would make it imperative that he starts winning even to a further degree or greater degree than what would be expected.
Right. And I think another thing, too, to consider is the fact that it's a university in the heart of Los Angeles. So, the fact that Under Armour was willing to pull their name out of a major university in the city of a major city like Los Angeles also speaks volumes. So I don't know what else Chip Kelly can do. I've kind of heard stories, that he's kind of standoffish with boosters and other admins around the school. He hates recruiting, doesn't really connect with players.
Absolutely.
Like you said, he inherited an excellent roster. Jim Moore recruited very well there. And they were just bad right out of the gate. And I don't understand. And, I think maybe it has a lot to do. I don't know. Maybe he kind of changed a little bit in the NFL because, there were some bad PR moves, in terms of like some questionable transactions he made. And he kind of lost the trust of some of his players. So I'm not sure if really he's quite the same guy that he was maybe at Oregon.
I think a few things happened here. I think number one is that so everything you just outlined in regards to his strengths and weaknesses is spot on. He's not good with the media. He's not a booster type. He doesn't generate a lot of excitement around. It's he's the opposite of a Dabo Sweeney who just, kind of cuddles the players and makes it a family-oriented type look and feel and generates that kind of optimism and that kind of exuberance. Chip Kelly made his living on, I'm a genius. I'm an offensive genius. I'm a system guy. I can figure it out. We're smarter than they are. And I'll take pretty decent rosters and I'll compete for national championships. So now that he's had that taken away from him, and what I think has happened is basically just the game has caught up with him. So he's no longer ahead of the curve. And then even though he inherited a pretty good roster at UCLA, it wasn't fit for his offensive style. He didn't have the quarterback who was mobile enough to run that system. He didn't have quick, slimmed down offensive linemen that run in space and can get out on the perimeter. And so he inherited a roster that was pretty good, but not for his game. And again, his game has now become just what everybody else is running. He's no longer ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I think a lot of people maybe assumed, since he was forced to change from his style going to the NFL. It needed to be a little more physical. So I think there was some assumption, he was going to bring that same style to UCLA. He was going to be able to adapt, and be able to use the bigger linemen, and be able to use, more pocket style quarterback. But it just hasn't happened. And I think too, it's just, it's crazy too, because this would be a peak time to take advantage for UCLA with USC being down. So with both big programs there in LA being down, I mean, that's one big reason why you're seeing so many elite California players leaving the state.
It's
Ohio
not
State's
like
a few. Oregon's cleaning up in that state.
They're going to Tennessee.
Right,
they're going to Alabama. It's not like Chip Kelly walked into the SEC Western Division. It's not like he took over Texas A&M and went 3-9 and 4-8 because the schedule's so brutal. He's playing in arguably the worst division in college football, and he's still going 7-17 in 2 seasons. It's crazy how bad it's been.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had, Mark. I'll let someone else get on here and call. Looking forward to future shows, and talk to you soon.
Hey, much appreciated. We'll see you.
All right. I'll take it.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking it down with you, and let you know that Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, Florida State Live. We still have to figure out our Miami and Ohio State live streams for this week. So that's the reason why you subscribe, turn on the bell for the notifications, and know when we're going live. Also, we've got an exclusive live stream with you. We had 12 of you sign up for the last exclusive live stream. 5 of you navigated the link to come on and talk college football with me. It was a fun time. We had NBA Fan, we had Phil, we had Tony, we had, oh my goodness, who else? Jake was there, and a few others showed up to talk college football last Thursday night with me, exclusive live stream. So let me know if you're interested. Leave your comment in the comments section of any of the videos and just say, I'm interested, and I'll know what that means to talk college football with me, and come on directly here. And again, a number of projects are in the works. I'll be excited to unveil those very soon as well. Need to cut it tight tonight. Thank you so much for jumping on board. Hope I haven't missed anything of significance. If there's anything that you want to convey to me that you left in the live chat, please copy and paste it and leave it in the comments section of any of the videos. As I'm scanning the live chat right now, Jake, McGlone, George, MSU #1 fan, of course, calling in. Sooner Thrawn, good to see you. Sooner Thrawn was part of our live exclusive live stream last week. Cheryl, always good to see you, and everybody else. Luke as well, Clemson Kid, here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We'll see you soon. Dive into the content. We're releasing new content every day. And I saw somebody in here, I think it was Luke, that said somebody needs to unveil a scheduling system. I am that someone, Luke. I've done it years ago. Most of you haven't been watching me that long, so apparently what I need to do is take my scheduling system, put it back down on paper, put it on a video, and post it and send it to all of you the way college football should be scheduled. Take it out of the hands of the individual schools, put it in the hands of a formula that makes sense, that provides equality in regards to fairness of scheduling, and we can get this done the right way. See all of you next time. And again, that will be Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time for Florida State football live. And we will be cranking out the videos in the meantime.